Absolute banger. I'm disappointed that we didn't get it replaced with some kind of German beer keller music this week after our beautiful time in the Bavarian beer halls. You're listening to The Gridiron Show. Will Gavin, Olly Hunter, Mike McQuaid, a.k.a. Necky himself, all on their way. All, I think, still feeling a little bit tender on Tuesday. I don't know about anyone else. I got back about Monday lunchtime and after 2 meetings, then fell asleep on the sofa for 4 hours. It was probably the greatest nap I've had in a very, very long time. Is 4 hours ever a nap? If it's in the middle of the day, that counts, right? You're listening to The Gridiron Show or watching it, hopefully, on YouTube, on its Twitter, on everywhere else. If you are watching live, please feel free to fire in a question via the YouTube feed. We can get your questions live or send them to us on Twitter at Gridiron, at Will Gav, at Olly Hunter, and at Michael_NFL. Gents, I was speaking for myself, but I'll come to you first, Olly, because I feel like Michael's going to have some stories to tell. Olly, how you feeling?
Olly, you're on mute, my friend.
Oh, that's amazing. It's not my fault. Not my fault.
I'll hit the button. Here we go.
Hello,
try it again, Olly. Try it again. There we go.
I think he's just doing this now.
Olly.
And just pretending.
Oh.
He's definitely doing that. No, he's actually
not. This is the joys of being live. Olly, can you refresh your browser and come straight back in or something? And we'll try and make it work.
Oh, that means I am going to have to go to the man, the myth, the legend. So, Michael, I'll come to you first. How are you feeling, sir?
Are we going to start singing Country Roads? Will we do it?
Country Roads. Sing home.
Oh, here.
I belong. I didn't realise that had such a significance in the Oktoberfest crowd until they played it. I was like, is this a big song in Germany or something? So I then looked it up and found out it is indeed a relatively big song in Germany. And the whole event, I mean, we're all going to give our thoughts on it, but the whole event absolutely blew my little mind. And that moment was really special. Olly Hunter, are you back? Are you with us?
Am I on mute?
No, we can hear you.
Yes. Welcome. Okay. You're right, Will. The whole event was really, really special. But I'm feeling great. I stayed an extra, I reckon, 10 hours longer than you guys in Munich on that Monday. I went out to a beer kettle. I went to the Hofbrauhaus and then to the Agostiner opposite. I had another Steiner. I had found some fried chicken and chips, which was a welcome relief from all of the pork that I'd been eating throughout the weekend. Munich, though, what a magnificent city. I've been to Hamburg's a really good city as well, but I've been to Hamburg, Cologne, Berlin, and Munich, the 4 different places in Germany that I've been, and Munich is probably my favorite. Not only just because all of the NFL fans were there and it felt like there was a proper center to all of the fans to go to and really enjoy it, whereas in London you don't really get that feeling. There'll be pockets of fans in pubs, multiple tube rides away, whereas in Munich everyone was around the Irish, multiple Irish bars, the beer kellers, the ales, the ale houses, the restaurants. So I just thought it was perfect for the fan experience. Basically, people tailgated for the weekend beforehand in the city, in the beer houses. It was magnificent. It was such a great time.
It's my first suggestion to NFL UK when we get an opportunity to suggest something to them of lessons to learn from how the German game was. And obviously we have to caveat it with it was their first one ever. So, the atmosphere was different because of that. And it was, there were a lot of people who bought their tickets and travel their kind of flights and hotels before they got tickets. So we spoke to a lot of people over the course of the weekend, whether from Germany or whether from, the UK, Ireland, Spain, France, all over, that had traveled just to come and absorb the fan event, even without having a ticket for the game. And even the fan park before the game itself, when we got off the train 4 hours before kickoff, it was already kind of shoulder to shoulder walking down the walkway, and that fan park probably had 100,000+ people in it 4 hours before kickoff. So there was no way that everyone there had a ticket to the event, but they just wanted to come and absorb American football culture and come and enjoy it and see their friends and just generally be engaged in the whole thing. And I think that the first kind of suggestion I'd make to NFL UK based on it is that the way that the whole weekend panned out, and people are going to treat London differently. We have to accept, it's been 15 years here, 32 games, so it's a very different experience. But I would say you want to take over multiple places in central London, get them branded up. You want to keep them within a relatively small area. You want to almost create like that fan zone festival atmosphere without there needing to be like, okay, yeah, they had the place at Odeonplatz where it had there's some helmets and some shops and some things like that. But realistically, we spent 10, 15 minutes there and then went off to the various branded NFL beer houses, and they were all absolutely packed with fans, great atmosphere around all of them. And we'll talk maybe about our individual experiences of the weekend, the game itself, I'm sure, as well. But I think the first thing to say is, like, after I tweeted out that picture of the Travis Kelce coming soon to Germany, indicating it is going to be the Chiefs next year, which our understanding is it's going to be the Chiefs and possibly the Patriots in 2 games, which there were a lot of nudges and winks and little, maybe there's going to be 2, maybe there's not kind of thing. I think even Roger Goodell said on Saturday during the fan event that there's going to be at least 4 games over the next 4 years. So it's being hinted at. I think they're trying to build some buzz for the idea that they might do 2, and they have to work with the Bundesliga to make that happen and everything else. But seeing the kind of responses that have come in after that and actually experiencing the game itself, experiencing the atmosphere beforehand, the atmosphere during the game, the fact that about 40,000 fans out of the 67,000 there stayed for 40 minutes or so afterwards and were singing along, and they were engaging with like Marcus Kuhn and Bjorn Werner on the big screen, and they were just wanting to soak up every possible second of the event they could. I couldn't help but get a little bit emotional about it. Like, actually feel like, as somebody who loved this sport growing up and didn't have access to it, we are so privileged and so lucky that over the last 15 years, barring a one pandemic hit year, we've had competitive football games in our country every season, 32 of them in total. And people can complain. I saw a couple of people going, oh, they get the Chiefs and we get the Jags. We had the Packers and Saints this year as our home teams in the official NFL games. Those are 2 of the biggest teams in the NFL giving up their home games to come to London. They get the Chiefs next year, but we get 2 other massive teams. I'm not going to be complaining. And honestly, I'm not complaining about any games we get over here because it is a real privilege. And I feel like I felt in that stadium that sense of anticipation, that finally getting the thing that they wanted for so long. German market has been big as the UK market for decades, certainly in the last 10 years or so, if not bigger, they're saying with the statistics now. And so them finally getting that thing and feeling that passion from those fans, it left me feeling genuinely emotionally overwhelmed at the end of it. Like I was practically crying on air. I was just like, this is a beautiful thing to see. And every German we spoke to is lovely. I've gone fully native, but I had the best time. Sorry, I went on for a long time. Michael, give me your thoughts about it.
It's funny, man, because like there's so many different elements. I think your idea and what you were saying there about having a different zone in London is perfect. I think if you get the international home marketing teams like the Niners, the Bears, the Jags, even if they're not playing, put some bars. Like, I mean, I reckon, well, you might land up to that Niners bar. If there's one
that's by the way, worth mentioning that's something that they did do in Munich. That there wasn't just the Bucks and the Seahawks who had a branded location, but all 3 of the other 2 locations, all 3 of the other teams, the Panthers, the Patriots, and the Chiefs, all had a bar as well, and all of those were banging all weekend long. It wasn't just like, the teams that were playing, every bar was packed out.
I went to the Panthers bar on Saturday at lunchtime for one casual sip of Rock Shandy, and it was the atmosphere was incredible.
Of course, it was one casual sip of Shandy. Yeah.
It was one casual sip of Shandy. Yes, absolutely. Later on that night might have been a different question, but it was just electric. I mean, you talked there, Will, about the numbers. On Friday night there was an event for a podcast, 6,000 people at it. On Saturday there was 10,000 people at like the equivalent of Sky Sports, a big party. On Sunday there was 6,000 people watching Red Zone in an arena, which was then shown live on TV and all during the game. It was just mental, and obviously, yes, you do have that whole always the first time element of it. I think you're bang on. Well, London have had some great games this year, and more importantly, tight games. Close games that went to the end, and games that were exciting. And I think we should feel privileged to have one game a year, if needs be, in the UK or anywhere. I mean, it's great to go to a game. At the end of the day, those teams are coming over here on their own back, and I very much look forward to seeing who, if anybody, goes to these games next year. Which teams? That's a very interesting rumor you said there with the Chiefs.
I'm not here digging out NFL UK fans, to be clear, but it did.
That feels like what you're saying.
It did.
Like why do you hate the NFL UK?
There's so many wonderful people in the NFL UK community, and every time we go to a game, we said it this year. The feel at those games at Tottenham felt incredibly special on the day. Just don't think you have that same build up of the. We landed in Thursday and basically, didn't spend a moment where we couldn't be speaking to an NFL fan who was wearing gear, who was up for chatting, who had a story to tell. Like, it just, that level of engagement was so there and so on point. And it's not about digging out NFL UK fans, just saying that, it just made me realize how special it is all over again. It's that thing of, I fell in love all over again with the league, playing games outside of the US, and realized how special and how incredible it is. And if I have my way, I'll be back in Germany for every game over the next 5 years, 10 years, however long. I mean, who knows what the next 10 years holds, but I plan to be going there for as many games as possible because it's a riot.
I'll tell you what it does. It throws some interesting an interesting spotlight on the age-old could there ever be a franchise in the UK question. I think there are two things in this. There could be, if they were to do a franchise abroad, it would be one franchise split between the UK and Germany and Dublin or whoever, a European franchise, or it opens the door for a division potentially in Europe. Could Germany sustain two teams with their 80 million population? Could London sustain two teams? Could Barcelona be thrown into the mix? So I think it's really opening the door to a potential European division. And I think that's really, really exciting.
And look, Goodell hinted at that when he was in London. Well, didn't hint it, outright said it. He thinks that the fan bases here could support it. And the numbers are 3.3 million ardent fans in each country is the suggestion based on market research. Germany has 17 million casual fans. The UK something like 15. There are actually now more Game Pass subscribers and Madden players in Germany regularly than there are in the UK. They are two huge markets for these two locations. So look, I think it was we've talked purely from the kind of organizational standpoint. It was sensational. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, there were a few teething things with the event itself that I think they'll learn over time, just like London did. The only minor complaints I ever heard were the queues for beer were incredibly long inside the stadium. That's not dissimilar when you go to Tottenham. But I remember the first game at Wembley where they ran out of beer midway through the third quarter because they didn't know that during an NFL game, it's not like you have these flashpoints where everyone goes to the bar. There's some people at the bar constantly. So that's part of the learning curve, and maybe a bit more staffing to get people in. Like, it took a little long to get in with the tickets and everything. But once you were in, it was fantastic. And, the teams had a great time. The positivity from, obviously, particularly from Brady and that, is what is going to catch a lot of attention, but from all the players we spoke to about their experiences, and they're getting people were talking about like how much these international travel games can like affect a team. And or we say Thursday night football is unfair on a player's body, but we're willing to send them transatlantic. But speaking to like some of the fitness coaches around, certainly the Buccaneers where we were on Friday, they've got so much in place to make sure that their sleep cycles are stuck to make sure that their bodies are looked after, to make sure we understand so much on a sports science level about the human body now that they can absolutely handle travel. handling playing a game 3 days, 4 days after another game is one thing, but handling a long travel as part of a week when you've got a full week between games is very different. And then the game itself, I mean, it was a little slow to start. The field maybe needs to be conditioned more to an NFL experience, or they need to get cleats which are more suited to a turf situation, because there were a few slips early on. But Tampa Bay turned up. They played hard in the trenches. They won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and they made the Seahawks work for every single yard, while going from being a team who had 60 rushing yards per game going into that game to putting up over 160 on the ground, almost trebling their season average total. I just thought that they turned up and had a better game plan. And as much as we had the weird turnovers, we had the Brady non-catch, and that was very funny. And then the Geno fumble, everything. There were some moments of high drama, but it was an incredibly professional performance and a well-coached performance. And with the players they've got returning on defense now, and back-to-back wins, back to 5-5, should win their division from here. And suddenly Tampa Bay go from being one of the biggest disappointments of the season to being like, look, watch out for them in the next 9 weeks.
I think for me, the thing, and I know like it's looking at the stats on paper is one thing, but actually being there and seeing it, Brady looked so comfortable. I know he had an interception on the day, but he looked a lot more comfortable, at ease with himself. I mean, I know you guys seen that on Friday in the presser. He looked very happy to be there, but he did look very, very relaxed, and you could sense that in his play on Sunday. And obviously for them to get the run game going with Whites and playoff international Lenny was something that worked well for the Bucs. And I was a bit disappointed in the Seahawks performance. I thought they would play better. I thought Geno Smith would play better, but it says a lot about the game whenever Pete Carroll was talking about how good it was, even though they lost the game. It was just mad. But Brady was so impressive on Sunday for a guy that had 2 touchdowns and an interception. He just looks so comfortable on the ball.
It looks like the reports of his downfall and demise are a little bit premature. It's taken him a bit of time to get into the swing of things. He didn't have much of a preseason. He didn't have any preseason games either. So it's taken him this long to get into it. You've also got the whole thing about his personal life, and I think the fact that he wasn't in the United States this week, 2 weeks after his divorce has come through, and all of the focus, pretty much, I don't know, I wasn't at the press conference, but I think all of the focus was on Germany, the game, the expansion, all of this stuff that kind of focused his mind and made it so that he didn't have to think about if someone from the press was going to ask him about Gisele Bündchen. So I think all of that, it just made for a perfect storm for him to look like he's going to come back and have a good game. And he did, and he looks really good. One of the touchdown throws was ridiculous, like a really, really good throw. I don't see a massive drop-off. I said last week that when that touchdown went in to win the game with your buddy Otten, Willie G, I said that could be the turning point of the whole entire season for the Buccaneers. And so far, I'm proved right.
I look at the rest of the Bucs schedule, and I would say they've got 2 of their divisional games at home. They play the Falcons on week 18 on the road, but that's not one of the more difficult places to travel. The Cardinals on the road with the season they're having looks winnable. The Bengals at home, if they're in a position where they're 2-3 games above 500 by then, very easily could go into that as favorites. The Browns on the road coming off the bye, no Deshaun Watson yet, and they looked pedestrian this weekend. The 49ers in Santa Clara looks tough, but honestly, they could win, of the 7 games remaining on their schedule, 5, 6 of those, and then they go in as the kind of 3rd seed, even the 2nd seed, and suddenly look like an absolute powerhouse in the playoffs. So it's particularly Todd Bowles really impressed me. The defense really impressed me. And that's as much as Seattle came out in the second half and went no huddle and moved the ball quickly. And actually, if it hadn't been for Geno, who the one thing that's been so brilliant about him this season has been his decision-making has been so on point. The fumble, he just saw coverage downfield. There was a bit of panic because they were down by 14-3 at that point and desperate for a score. And I think he just made a poor decision, ended up fumbling the ball. Without that, arguably the Seahawks could go on and won that game, like the way that they played during the second half and the way that they moved the ball, the way they started finding DK Metcalf, like they just got into much more of a rhythm. The Bucs did enough this weekend to make me think that with a bye week now, more chance to get healthy, those defensive backs coming back, the second half of the year should look a lot brighter for Tampa Bay. Maybe we're not ready to put them into kind of Super Bowl talk contention yet, but they win 3 or 4 more. Yeah, we're looking good. They're not winning in Santa Clara, says Paul on YouTube. Good man. Love that, Paul. I'm with you.
Oh, man. It's crazy, isn't it? Will, tell me this genuinely. Did you think the Eagles were going to go unbeaten? I thought they would go to Christmas Eve. Genuinely, I thought, no?
I honestly, right? I sat in a bar in Odeonplatz with Neil Dutton and Paul Maines from the excellent Mainesian Duts who do Dutton's one of the great fantasy football writers in our country. Mainesy, a great podcaster, Washington fan, Eagles fan. And I sat there and I said, I've been predicting for weeks that the Eagles are going to have a weird loss over this time. I thought it might be against the Colts next week until the Jeff Saturday thing happened, although that's, that's very different. I thought maybe it'd even be against the Steelers or the Texans. And I was like, I am not going to be shocked if they go in on Monday Night Football and lose that game. And all right, the referees got a little involved. And all right, the score was a bit padded by that defensive touchdown at the end, which, I'm sure ruined many bets towards the end of the day. But I think they are a very, very good football team, but there are flaws in their game that, as every team has, the point of the salary cap, the point of, the way that the league is built is that you're not going to be able to build a perfect team. And I just didn't think it was sustainable for a full season. I don't know if we'll ever see an undefeated season again. Like, I genuinely don't know if that's possible in a 17-game season. If we get to 70 years old, if I get to 70 years old, it might be a miracle anyway. But if we get to 70 years old, certainly if I could have more weekends like we've just had in Munich, if I get to 70 years old and don't... People are laughing, by the way. If you listen to the audio version of this podcast, they're laughing, but they're on mute. So I just wanted to make it less awkward because I am talking about my own mortality.
All I can think of is
to avoid.
All I can think of is the weekend that we just had, and like Ollie was saying there about imagine the division.
and
imagine the division. Imagine
Will's going to be lucky to live to 40, let alone 70.
No, but imagine doing that 8 weeks of the year. Imagine doing potentially say there's 2 games in Germany. Imagine 5 weekends like that next season. Like that, it takes its toll. In a good way. But last weekend was great crack, great fun.
I'm not sure that we would have that we would necessarily have done the same, but for every weekend. But there we go. Yeah, I did. It's somewhat of a surprise they lost to Washington when I woke up this morning, but I expected it to come, and I still think they're going to go at worst 14-3 with the rest of their schedule as it is. But even 13-4, that's still potentially number 1 seed in the NFC. Let's be honest.
It was a really interesting game. Did any of you lads actually sit and watch it last night?
Mate, there was no way I was staying. Interestingly, I did go to bed for a little bit, woke up and watched the first half of the first quarter. So I just can't help myself. If I wake up and I see the time's 1 o'clock, I'll just reach over to my phone, load up Game Pass, and then inevitably wake up at 6 a.m. with my phone on my belly.
It was a really...
Having not moved.
It's got a little kickstand on it. It's great.
It was really interesting because there was that turning point. I think it was the second quarter when Brian Robinson, who had gone by next gen stats, had a really, really good game, and his energy on the run was fantastic. But when he scored that touchdown, you started to think, oh, here we go. This team Washington could beat the Eagles here tonight. And it was at that point they just shut the crowd up really in Philly, and it sort of turned a wee bit. But I think for me, the bigger story now is you got a Washington Commanders team that are 5-5 going in to week 11 here, and frankly, any discussion of Carson Wentz coming back in should be shut down. Taylor Heineke is the man in Washington. What is he, 3-1 as a starter? Let the man play. He takes this team to a new level in terms of confidence and ability. And I really enjoyed how Washington went about themselves last night. And the fact that Scary Terry was finally able to get open for over 120 yards. And the Eagles defense didn't blitz enough. You've almost got that blueprint now of how to beat the Eagles. It's okay, work that way around. But Commanders 32 points is probably telling for them, but there was a couple of mistakes towards the end. I mean, my God, lads, the Eagles had enough chances at the end, they couldn't take it, so it just wasn't their night. But they'll be okay. I agree with you, William. I think 14 for 3 or 15-2 could be a record.
Look, they had a big problem in AJ Brown getting a little knock, and I think he only caught one pass off about four targets, but mainly because he wasn't healthy. I think they just had him out there as someone who the Commanders would have to think about. Oh, he's out on the field. We're going to have to think about cover him, maybe double cover him. But they need him back healthy and sharpish, because he's key to everything that they do, because he's so good. I think it's interesting, Will, what you said about the 17 undefeated team. That's got to be 17 wins or 16 and a draw.
You'd have to go 20-0. What? No, yeah. If you took the wildcard week out, because obviously if you've gone 17-0, you're going to be the 1 seed. So you'd have to go 20-0 for the season, right, to win a Super Bowl.
Look, in international football, soccer, I think the record's 15 straight games of winning. That's not including draws. In rugby union, the Red Roses have just lost their 30 games, but that's a completely different sport. In rugby union men's, it's I think the All Blacks did 25 across
25.
two World Cups, 2011 to 2015. So that's the benchmark that we're doing here. This is elite sport, the top of the top. Effectively, NFL is international. That's because it's the top level. It doesn't happen. Long winning streaks don't happen, and if it does, it's an absolute freak of an occurrence. And you're right. I don't think we'll ever see it happen again. And that 72 legacy is secure for at least another year, but I mean probably forever.
How's your voice, by the way, Ollie?
Yeah, voice is good. Why?
We like, this is the thing with what kind of happened with our experiences in Germany.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Things kept kind of barreling a little out of control every time. Every time we'd go somewhere, it would just be like, right, we're just going to have a nice quiet night. The Thursday, that didn't happen. I mean, McQuaid joined us from a swanky party where he was at a free bar and everything was going on. So he was already...
Will did not get us into this big Sports Illustrated party that he was talking about on the show on Friday.
No one ever got back to me. What can I do? I can, just clearly not
next time,
influencer guys. The Friday night was really good crack. We went to that
Scholars.
same bar under the what was that underground bar called that we were back in on Saturday and Sunday? Scholars. Yeah, that was good fun. They had great music on the Friday night, and Michael was again bubbling along nicely. Considering we'd been out for like 4 hours without him, he turned up at kind of 9:30 because he'd been editing video, and then came out and just by 1 a.m. was in the best of all states. It was sensational to watch. There's some videos of him dancing to Justin Timberlake and singing to himself while also doing social media posts. It's cracking work. But
welcome to my life, Here, I have to say though, Will, on the Friday that was great crack at your hotel. Really, really. I watched it back when it was obviously editing it, and just some absolute clangers. And obviously, was it Ollie picked the Bucks to win? You picked the Bucks as well, Will?
Will did as well, yeah.
Yeah,
on that show he did. I don't know whether he changed like full Will Gavin-esque 180 switcheroo covering both bases.
But the Sunday night we ended up going to again meet Mains and Duts after we'd been in the first bar, and then we went to the second bar, and in the second bar there was a live band playing, and there were about 500 people in there, and everyone was watching the games, but also they were singing along every word to this live band like it was karaoke, and they were playing all the classics, and we got Country Roads again, and we got Sweet Caroline and the Proclaimers,
500 Miles,
and all that good stuff. Like, it was really, really good fun, but it was particularly funny that the first time that they hit the chorus of 500 Miles, midway through, everyone get a louder cheer. And I was like, what's going on? Looked up, and Dak Prescott had just been picked off for the second time. And it's like, it sunk together really nicely, because not only did we have a good night out and there was so much great stuff going on, but we also had some great football this weekend. Unfortunately, we didn't get to watch it in that much depth. I'm still in the process of catching up. But 2 games I want to ask about before we finish up would be Vikings Bills. how much, when you consider the Dolphins coming out, and we don't need to get too much into the Dolphins, but that offense has been absolutely unreal. And Tua Tagovailoa's third down rates are at a historic high, and they put up massive points again this week. The Bills losing a couple of games now. How much do they have to worry about that AFC East where everyone's above 500 and everyone's looking pretty good? And the Dolphins, I would say, should be gunning for a division title now. Ollie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I nearly lost the voice.
It had to be that way.
It had to be me.
Michael,
it had to be
to you.
My voice is actually going, so I'm going to try and hurry up here. Going outside of that, the whole thing for the Bills now. The Bills are third in the AFC East because of the whole Jets tiebreaker. It's mad. But if the Dolphins win the AFC East, they're going to the Super Bowl. And it's ironic that Simon Clancy's not on the show this week. And very quickly, as I remind myself, Will, the curse is over. The Packers won. The curse of Clancy is finished. The curse of Olly Hunter as well has finished as well this week. The Dolphins offense, with Tua in that form, with Jalen Waddle, with Tyreek Hill, with Gesicki, with all these other weapons, is ridiculous. So if they get that far, I mean, the bottom of the AFC East, the Patriots are 5-4. Like that's nuts. But man, the Vikings and Justin Jefferson on Sunday night, and what Gavin O'Connell has done to this team, I cannot wait for the second or third week in January to see how far this team can go in the playoffs. Because Jefferson, I think you said it, Will, at the time on Sunday night, it was good crack as well. Is he the best player in the NFL? Never mind the best wide receiver. I mean, that catch was sensational towards the end of the game. Absolutely sensational.
I mean, I said that after we'd been back in the bars for a couple of hours post game. So, you know, sorry, the stand on this mic keeps collapsing. I'll do that again so you can edit it out of the audio version. I will caveat it by saying I did tweet that when I'd been back in the beer halls for a couple of hours post game, and I was still riding an adrenaline fueled high from just the whole event, doing my first ever comms, which was good fun, and all of that good stuff that was also involved with that side of things. I stand by it to an extent. I think he's the best non-quarterback in the NFL. And I know that Tyreek Hill, we've talked about previously, being the one wide receiver for whom you have to change your scheme in order to kind of consider when you're putting together your thing. You have to just change your whole scheme based around him because of how quick he is. But Justin Jefferson, it doesn't matter. He's beating any scheme you put in front of him, any corner you put in front of him, any triple coverage, any difficulty of catch. He had this past weekend an NFL record of the previous record within a game of somebody catching balls. This is since they started doing next-gen stats and all of that. So kind of early 2000s, whenever that was. They have this catchable pass rate. So whether or not a pass is expected to be caught. And the previous record for a game where of somebody catching passes below 50% likelihood is 6. And Justin Jefferson had 9 in that game. 9 catches, which he had a 50% success rate or less, because they were outside of his catch radius, because they were low, because they were difficult catches, because they were just because of the coverage, because of whatever else it might have been. And he just made spectacular play after spectacular play. And okay, there were question marks in that game over the decision from Josh Allen to run out of the end zone, and that turned into a touchdown, and kind of various other bits and pieces that, again, there was some weird officiating, but it made for a brilliant spectacle. And without Justin Jefferson, the Vikings probably lose that game by 20 plus points. With him, they go and get an overtime victory. And that's as good an individual performance as I've seen in an NFL game from a non-quarterback, certainly, in years.
Okay, so he's 1,060 yards on the season. The record, Calvin Johnson, 1,964.
Tyreek Hill's going over 2,000 this year. I absolutely
do we get
that.
2 people going over 2,000? Is this like the start of how the 100 meters world record was chipped away? Is this the start of it, that we'll see people now going regularly over that 2,000 yard receiving record?
I do feel like records, Michael, at some point are going to have to just be changed to yards per game, because the 17-game season does give you an advantage.
Yeah, and then we're talking about the Dolphins going unbeaten. How many games did the Dolphins play that year in 72?
Is that 12 game year, 14 game
Yeah,
year,
something like
14
that.
possibly?
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to have this conversation now because Mr. Clancy's not here. I mean,
He gets so angry that we didn't know it. How do you not know our exact
No,
record
but like-
and who we beat in every game? And
But like 14 games, Will. Like the Eagles could have went 14-0 this year.
yeah, it was 14-0 in the regular season.
Yeah, and then I mean, like if they'd went 14-1, is that the same conversation? I mean,
They went 17-0 overall, including the 3 playoff wins. So you'd have to do what they did in the regular season, but obviously you have to beat more difficult teams in the playoffs, just to caveat it. JT says on Twitter, I'm a Bears fan. Can you please explain what a winning streak is to me? It's what you would have been on this weekend if you could have put the Lions away.
I'll give you a winning streak. It's Aaron Rodgers against the Bears.
Justin Fields is a one-man winning streak, even if they're losing games of football. He's been really good fun to watch.
He's a streak or something.
There's been some really exciting emerging players this year, and Justin Fields going from around about week 4, week 5, when people thought he wasn't a viable NFL quarterback in his second year, to suddenly the offense letting him loose, him going and running and just having way better time of things. So, yeah, it's just honestly, sorry, JT, but you've got a quarterback and you're probably going to be picking high and you'll probably be able to go and get yourself some nice players. If they have a good draft this year, the Bears are spicy next year. We haven't talked about that Packers win over the Cowboys. Another overtime victory. Olly Hunter. Is Rodgers back?
I think,
are you a happy boy?
Well, do you know, I wasn't unhappy last week. All the people saying, oh, Rodgers is done. I was happy that he was trying to force things and not playing safe, and that's exactly what happened again on Sunday. I don't know what day it is. On Sunday, I was going to say yesterday.
I haven't got a clue anymore.
But that's what happened again on Sunday. He was making some really good throws. It was huge that Christian Watson got that first touchdown, and then he ended up getting another 2. But it was huge for his confidence. It's huge for Rodgers' confidence in him. But Rodgers was making some brilliant throws, brilliant decisions. When you've got Aaron Jones running for 100+ yards again, even his touchdown where he, I don't know, not backflipped, sort of backfell into the end zone. And they came up against a really good offense and a good defense as well. The Cowboys are a good team. We'll talk about what we're looking forward to next week or this week in the NFL, and I think Cowboys going to the Vikings is an absolute humdinger stonker of a game because 2 really informed teams.
Banger of a game,
but just crackerjack of a game. But the Packers, they've got over that hump. I don't know whether you've seen the post-match locker room stuff from Matt LaFleur, where he's a really emotional guy. I've never seen him so emotional. Normally he's a bit of a robot, isn't he? But his voice starts to crack. He starts to say, you know, we stuck together as a team. We've got through this as a team, and today everyone played. Everyone was on the same page. No one moaned. I think this team are together, and that it's not. I'm going to say this: it's not what you do at the beginning of the season and how things pan out, but it's how you finish it. I could see the Packers making the playoffs because of this game, that performance.
Oh,
I think it's really big.
Here we go.
I find the other thing I find interesting about that you mentioned about the Cowboys going forward. So Christian Watson, great day for him. Actually, could have had. Well, he only had 4 passes for that 107 yards and 3 touchdowns, 4 catches. Sorry. Every one of them was massive because it was obviously the 3 touchdowns, but also a massive third down was his other catch. He also had another one where he slowed on a deep bomb because he just didn't see the ball coming over his shoulder. And actually, he caught that one. He could have been 170 yards for the day and 4 touchdowns. And it just absolutely ridiculous performance. CeeDee Lamb is worth mentioning as well from that game because I'm just double checking the stats here. So career high 150 yards, 2 touchdowns on the game. After spending the entire week of hearing people say, oh yeah, OBJ will be the thing that gets the Cowboys over the top. You had Tony Pollard having a big day. You had CeeDee Lamb having a big day. You had Dak hitting some bombs as well, as much as he had the 2 interceptions, and his sloppiness may have been what ended up costing them in the end. You know, he still had a performance which with the right weapons and protection around him would go and win lots of games of football. I think for me, it's the way the Packers won because they were, down 14 going into the 4th quarter. and with the Cowboys having the ball. Sometimes you hear down 14 going into the fourth quarter, then you look up the play-by-play and you realize that, the first snap of the fourth quarter is a 1st and goal from the 3-yard line. It's not really the same kind of as if the other team have possession to start that quarter and are a famously good running team who might take 8 minutes off the clock with this drive. So, yeah, I really, really impressive Packers performance. I thought really kind of hopefully kind of, I know we already just hit the second half of the season, but I feel like there's a few NFC teams who are hitting their straps a little bit at a time where we've spent the whole season talking about how trash the NFC is. Just if we can get, as well as the Eagles, if the Cowboys, if the Packers can turn up in the second half of the year, I know you're down 4-6, but not out of it. If the Bucks can turn up in the second half of the year, if the 49ers can turn up in the second half of the year, at least we're maybe looking at a conference that could send a great team to the Super Bowl and not, one of those years where one conference is so clearly stronger than the other.
I agree. I think if the Cowboys were the second seed by week 17, the hype train goes on and on. I love the hype train around Dallas, right? But I love Tony Pollard. So let's see what happens over the next few weeks. The one game that I'm looking forward to.
Can I just quickly jump in there whilst we're talking Cowboys?
Go for it.
Have they got a better chance of finishing top of the NFC East than the Eagles? The way that the Cowboys are playing and the way that the wheels have had a little, maybe a few of the wheel nuts have come out, and the Eagles are a bit sort of coming off that defeat against a divisional rival in Washington Commanders. AJ Brown, we don't know his injury status. The Cowboys have to play the Eagles.
That game at AT&T is massive on Christmas Eve. That 9:25 window. That is an unbelievably big game.
Yeah.
Where are we watching that?
They both have the easier of the two schedule. Like the easiest schedule in the NFL this season belongs to the NFC East.
Yeah.
Based on the other divisions they play, etc. And so, the Cowboys and Eagles basically have the same. I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility, but it basically needs the Cowboys to win out. And that's, as much as I've just praised them, I've praised them in a loss. So, we're both talking. We're all talking about the teams two form teams in the NFC East that lost. The Giants and the Commanders both won this week. So Giants 8-2, as your friend Brian Michael kept saying over and over in Scholars Pub the other day. So I think it's an incredible division, from being probably the laughingstock division for maybe a good 10 years. It's so interesting this time round. It'd be interesting to find out. I know you like a little flutter, Michael, but I wonder what the odds are on the Cowboys. Maybe tell me off air, Cowboys winning the division.
Well, I'll say this. You said about the Giants there. Yeah, Brian is a Giants fan, and believe me, I've heard enough about it. The Lions, the Cowboys, the Commanders, the Eagles, the Commanders, and the Vikings are the next 6 games for the Giants.
Go 3-3
there. No way. No way. They play the Eagles week 17, so the Eagles could have a wee off week there. But
that's what I'm saying. They could go 3-3. They've got Washington twice. They'll lose to they'll split those. They'll lose to the Vikings. Who else have they got?
Commanders.
Yeah.
Eagles.
That's Washington.
Yeah. Sorry. So Vikings as well on Christmas Eve. And then the Colts. And then
the Vikings are the hardest team on all of these team schedules, and the Eagles have already played them. So
that's a very good point. Yeah,
that's the kind of key, really, isn't it? That's the biggest one for them.
And if you look at week 11, the Cowboys going to the Vikings, I actually think they'll win that. I think they're a better team.
Nice.
All right, I'll finish by asking you a 49ers question, since I know Paul's watching. Who is going to win the NFC West, guys?
The Niners.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I mean, the Rams are in absolute. They're in disarray. Disarray. Matthew Stafford doesn't want to come back off of injury.
Is that what you've heard?
Well,
Whispers.
He'd be back by now, wouldn't he? Get on with it, mate. Your team's in the mess. Maybe is he done? Is he done after winning a Super Bowl? Just get on with it. Get back. Play, man. Play. Arizona.
I mean, he is famously one of the toughest quarterbacks in the NFL, who played through more injuries than anyone else. And unlike a certain Aaron Rodgers didn't mention every injury 72 times every time he got injured constantly.
All right. Don't know why you're having a go at Aaron. I mean, that's fair enough. There are lots of things that you can have a go at.
Actually, Aaron wasn't the worst. You know who was the worst? Ben Roethlisberger. All right, mate, we get it. Oh, I'm carrying a knock.
Oh, and he's had some questionable life choices in his unpunished life choices in his life. So, we know who the greater person is. It's Matthew Stafford.
I think the Niners are the best team in that division on the sense of, I think the way that the Rams have went about themselves this season so far with McVay basically metaphorically out the door. Seattle obviously done a lot better than what everybody thought. I think they're going to have a bit of a drop now. And Cliff Kingsbury,
there's a Thursday night football game in Seattle, 49ers Seahawks on the 15th/16th of December, live on TalkSport 2, which is going to be absolutely huge. Absolutely huge.
Are you commentating on it? Because I will listen into that if you're commentating on it.
I'm hosting it. I'm not commentating on it.
You can tell Michael doesn't listen because he doesn't know how that works.
After my debut this past weekend, I need I probably need to hang up my spears. I'm afraid. Let Ollie Wilson, an actual professional man, do it.
The game for me that stands out this weekend, very quickly, lads, is Chiefs Chargers. I mean, the Chiefs could win the West this weekend if they win that game, as far as I'm concerned. And on the other side of the West, Raiders playing the Broncos. Who's going to get sacked, Bowl? Because McDaniels is not surviving that, and frankly, Hackett can't survive that either if they lose. And yeah, but the Chargers against the Chiefs is Sunday Night Football, baby. So I'm looking forward to it, and I will be listening to the pre-show on TalkSport 2 on Sunday night.
So
what a guy!
I'm definitely going to get a phone call at 12:30 now. Can you pop on the radio to talk about the Chargers offense? Yes, I can. Let's do it.
You love it.
Of course, we've got Thursday night football. Titans at Lambeau against the Green Bay Packers.
That's a fun-looking game. Like Titans had a dreadful game this past weekend. The first 9 drives in that game were punts, but they come out with the win, and I think that's a fun one. If the Packers put a hurt on the Titans, I'll start to believe they're back, Ollie.
We're back, and we are going to put a hurt on them. But I think Derrick Henry is capable of putting 200 yards on that run defense, which has never been really fixed. Yeah, so a bit worried about that.
It's going to be a good game.
It's another good week of football. We're all tired. It's been a long week.
Do you want to sing us out, Will?
My liver still hurt. It's interesting we say. I never finished my thoughts on the NFC West, so I'm just going to do them quickly. The one thing I do think is, as much as you say the Rams are a shambles, the Seahawks do have to still play them twice, and it's that weird thing in the NFC West where like the Rams can't beat the 49ers, and the 49ers can't beat the Seahawks, and the Seahawks can't beat the Rams, and like there's this kind of weird like for years it felt like it was you were getting 2 wins there but 2 losses there, so it all just negated each other, and that's going to be, for me, really interesting to see how the Seahawks bounce back after this past week. But in 2 weeks' time, when they face the Rams for the first time, like, are they going to finally get over that hump? And if they do, then I will believe that they can still go on and win the division. That Thursday night football becomes mega, mega significant. It's in 3 weeks, sorry, because they've got the bye now, haven't they? But Raiders in 2 weeks' time. Let's wrap it up. Look, love to hear from you. I'm tired. I'd love to hear from you at Gridiron on Twitter, at UK Gridiron on Instagram. I'm at Will Gav. He's at Olly Hunter. He's at Michael_NFL. I'm hopefully across all the socials for the brand. Love to hear from you wherever you listen in. Send your questions in. Hopefully you enjoyed our content from over the weekend on TalkSport 2. We loved chatting to all the people we met out there, the people who listened to the show and came up and chatted to us, the people who don't, and hopefully we converted. And just generally having a great time out in Munich. Let's do it all again next year, and ideally twice, please. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. This has been The Gridiron Show.